In this Blender animation tutorial for beginners, I will show you how I made a pixel art heart animation in Blender. I start by making a very simple heart using the default cube. I rotate the cube around the y-axis 45 degrees and tab into edit mode. I select the top edge and add a small bevel with Ctrl B. I then select both of the top faces and extrude them according to their normals using Alt-E to form the heart. I select the faces on the front and back, inset them, and extrude them along their normals. I then add some materials to the heart. I set up the camera angle and add a transparent background under the Render Properties tab in the Film panel. I also changed the resolution under the Output Properties tab. I also used the 3-point lighting add-on to add some lighting to the scene. Under the Compositing workspace, I choose Use Nodes. I add a scale node between the two default nodes. I also add a viewer node and connect the scale node to the viewer node. I then activate the render under the Render Layers node. I change the X and Y scale on the scale node. I then add a pixelate node between the scale and composite nodes. Add a second scale node between the pixelate and composite nodes. I need to change the scale to the inverse of the original scale node, in my case 10. Now when I zoom in on the heart using the Alt-V keys, I can easily see the pixelation. On to the animation. I start by changing my frames per second to 12 under the Render Output Properties tab. I also changed the end frame to 12. On frame 0, I add a keyframe for rotation. On frame 12, I rotate the heart around the z-axis 360 degrees and add a keyframe for rotation. I select all the keyframes. Using the T key, I open the interpolation options and select linear. This prevents the heart from easing in and out during the animation. I export the animation as a PNG sequence using RGBA. In Godot, I make a new 3D scene and add an animated sprite 3D node. In the inspector, I add new sprite frames and click on the sprite frames to open the animation frames area. I drag and drop all the PNG images into the animation frames area. In the inspector, I activate playing to see the animation play in the scene. If I want to use this as a sprite in a game, I need to make a sprite sheet. I will use GIMP and make a new file that is 2250 pixels wide and 3000 pixels high. This is based on my PNG file of 750 pixels, so your size might be different. I also make sure I change the fill to transparent. I then align my sprites on the sprite sheet. When I am done with the sprite sheet, I export it as a PNG. Back in Godot, I make a new 2D scene and add a sprite node. I drag and drop the sprite sheet onto the texture slot of the sprite in the inspector. Under the animation section, I change the H frames or horizontal frames and V frames or vertical frames so I only see the first sprite. I select the root node and add an animation player node. I click on the animation button to make a new animation. I then add a property track and choose the sprite and then choose frame. On the new animation track, I can now right-click and add a key, which will be the first sprite from the sprite sheet. In the inspector, I can see that the frame's value is 0. I then right-click and add a second key. I select the second key and change the value to 1. This will now show the second sprite. I repeat the process for the remaining keys. I change the animation length to the same as the entire animation. When I play the animation, it is working, but it is very slow. In order to speed things up, I move the sprites closer to each other on the track. I can also turn on the loop animation option. If you have a request for a tutorial, a question, or a comment, feel free to leave a comment below the video. If you're interested in learning more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.